Welcome back to SledgeHammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and today, episode 50 of my first horror movie, and I am joined by the amazingly talented and beautiful Lindsay Seim. You will know her as young Elise from Insidious Chapter 2, as well as her roles in Saint Agatha, another great film. How you doing today?
Hi, I'm amazing. I'm so glad to see you, and congratulations on 50 episodes.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being episode 50. This is something huge for me. I was just telling her before, I was watching Insidious Chapter 2 when I reached out to her. This is something so huge for me. I'm such a big fan. I know things are kind of crazy right now with COVID, but how are you holding up? How are things going with you?
I'm well. Thankfully, my health is good. My family, everyone's healthy. They're all bored, but we happen to be in my family quite spread apart across the country. So that's been, I think, just like everyone, the most challenging part is kind of still not knowing when and if we will all be able to see each other in person again. But right now, thankfully, we're okay.
Sure. And at least right now we live in a time where we have FaceTime,
Yes.
Zoom, and we can stay, with that contact with each other, which is super important. I agree with you. Telling family I love you as much as we possibly can is something super important, and being able to say it face to face, even if there's a screen there, it's still super important to do.
It's so true. We are, it is the best of times and it is the worst of times.
That's an absolute fact. So like I said, I know things are crazy with COVID, but is there any projects you got coming up that you can talk to us about, or?
Well, I was about just under halfway through shooting something as everything hit. So sadly, of course, that had to press pause. I was so excited. I had co-written that with some friends, and it's not a horror project. It's a kind of a modern love story, but I'm still, that one's still keeping me up at night because I'm just so anxious to be able to jump back into that when we can. And then I actually am kind of assisting in developing something that is horror related that I cannot talk about. And I just got everything crossed that it will work out. There's so many variables, but I'm really hoping.
When it goes through, not if, when it goes through and you can actually talk about it, please update me so I can update everybody else. I'm so excited to see anything you have coming up, even with your love story. I support you as a human being. I love the horror stuff you do, but I want to support every project you do because it's super important that we all support each other, especially in these crazy times right now. So
thank you. I'll take it. I will send it back to you. Thank you.
And I appreciate that so much. So you've done a lot of great things in your career. You got a lot of great accolades. If I talked about it, it'd be my whole episode. So I'm so proud to have you on here. Thank you again so much. And I want to know where this all started for you. When we're talking in the horror genre, your first horror movie that got you started, and your first horror movie was?
Oh boy. It was, okay. The first one, it was sort of against my will. I was 3. And it was Poltergeist. And my babysitter, my parents had gone out for the evening, and the babysitter brought it over on VHS. I'm dating myself. It was a VHS tape. She brought it over, and she snuck her boyfriend over, which was so naughty of her. And my older sister and I were there, but I was 3, and I had no idea what I was watching. And of course, it scared the life out of me. It just really messed me up.
See, and her sneaking her boyfriend over to watch it, that's kind of like a scary movie in itself. That's usually how they start. Babysitter sneaking the boyfriend over to watch a scary movie.
And even all of those things, like, I didn't even realize some of that had happened until, like, later on talking about it with my sister. I'm like, oh my God, she totally did that. we had the same memories. And then kind of going back, actually, ironically, in some of my prep for Insidious 2, there are some parallels with story-wise with Poltergeist and Insidious 2, or the Insidious franchise, with
Sure.
The medium and the family aspect, sort of urban thriller. So I kind of revisited Poltergeist for the first time because I was afraid of it since I was 3. And I had memories of some of the scenes that were still just like images that have been burned into my mind. I was like, oh, that was real. That happened.
Yeah. And that's what I love about talking about our first horror movies is the fact that, like you said, it's something that even that many years later from a young age, it's still that ingrained in you. You know, I can't think about Poltergeist without thinking of they're back or they're here, you know, and
Yeah.
then part 2, they're back, you know, like, oh my gosh, the first time Carol Ann, Heather O'Rourke, God rest her soul, the first time she does the they're here, like in the TV, like that, that was a wrap for me at a young age too.
I think that's ingrained in everyone's psyche.
Hmm.
Just like, ugh. And for me, it was the tree, because in my childhood bedroom, there was a giant magnolia tree, which was, you know, it's a beautiful tree. My mother planted
Sure.
it, but it came right up to my windows, and I had a mistrust of that tree after that, after seeing that movie. I
Oh,
was
sure.
a little bit afraid of it.
So when you were 3, did you actually get to finish the movie or?
No, I didn't even get to the part with all the people coming up out of the backyard.
Oh,
I
thank
don't know
God.
what that would have done to me. I mean, I think I was sort of just not really understanding for a while, because I have memories of some of the earlier scenes, and then whatever, the tree, and then the stuff with the closet, and I remember thinking like, oh, is that what happens in closets? You know, like, can that really happen?
Yeah.
So I think at some point I was probably hysterical and crying, and I don't remember the rest. They must have taken me out of the room or something. I
Sure.
feel like.
I'm sure the babysitter and the boyfriend were like, okay, time to get this crying kid out of here.
How fun was that really for them? It couldn't have been. Was it worth it? I don't think so.
Right. So that's your first horror memory, but what was the first horror movie that you've seen on your willingly all the
Willingly,
way through?
The Shining. And I probably was also a little too young for that. I mean, also, I was a very innocent child, really. It was like, I mean, Hocus Pocus was pushing it for me. That was
Right.
about my speed. But I did watch that with my sister again. But I was probably like 10 or 11. And then our cousin, what's up, Murphy? Our cousin had it, and we watched it. And that one, of course, also flew
Well,
my.
I think that's a staple. I think everybody should own this no
Yeah.
maknow what. So
But
that's
just
one of those movies that, yeah, it's one of those movies that, and especially at a young age, you know, Danny, come play with us. You know, like, and it's flashing between them. So while we're on that subject, I want to ask you, what scene in The Shining do you think affected you the most, and why at your young age?
probably him chopping through the door. I mean, there's so many, but that one I think, because it's there's a lot of, you know, visual things that are unsettling, and it's scary, but then that is like, it's more violent, and it takes it to a different place at that point, where it's not as much sort of suggested, but it's
Hmm.
more like practical terror and fear and visceral. But there's so
And
many, and just the composition of the shots, and everything in that film, obviously it's been, everyone talks about it for a reason.
yeah, well, it's something that I just learned watching the Blu-ray stuff is they wanted to use a prop door, but Jack Nicholson actually had firefighter training, so they used a real door, and he really chopped through that door. And the "Here's Johnny" actually was an ad lib. That wasn't in the script. That was something that he just ad libbed on the spot. And there's no movie quote, I think, that's as famous as the "Here's Johnny" from The Shining.
Right. Yeah, totally.
So
As synonymous with the genre as they're here.
yeah. Yeah. You know, you got that, you got, you know, the theme song to Jaws, you know, like those things are all together in such a powerful way. In this movie, I'm so glad I get to finally sit down and talk about this movie. It took 50 episodes, but we're finally to The Shining, talking about it in depth.
Really?
So,
No.
yeah,
Really?
yep.
Oh
I've touched on it in another episode, but I haven't got to really dig deep into The Shining. So, we talked about which scene affected you the most. Now, going back, what do you think your favorite scene is in this movie? And you can choose, like, as an actor watching or as a child. What scene do you think is your favorite to watch in this movie?
the maze, the blizzard. It's just so, like, there's nothing else like that.
Right. And
It's,
for me, I always go back to the stair scene where he's walking up the stairs and she has the bat. Like,
yeah.
that scene to me is just so powerful, you know. And Jack Nicholson, his acting in this movie, it's so good. everything he does in this movie is so perfect. I don't know if you've seen it, but on YouTube, they superimpose Jim Carrey's face over top of Jack Nicholson's
Oh,
for
I
scenes of
have.
this movie. I'm gonna send you that link when we're done with this, so you can watch it. It's so funny, like watching. It's still super deep and super heavy, but they just superimpose Jim Carrey's face over it. It looks really really good.
No, yeah, that was genius. Whoever did that.
So when we're talking about The Shining, I can't really talk about what death affected you the most because there's really only two deaths that you really, really see in the movie. I think you got what's his name that gets the axe in the chest, and then Jack. But let me go with this. Which ghost or spirit in the movie affected you the most? Which one of them do you think scared you the most?
The woman in the bathtub. That was, I think, just shock value. Having no idea what I was getting myself into watching it, and I think just that one got me for sure. I mean, and the little girls as well, but
Right.
uh,
Well, I'm not trying to sound like that perverted, but I was a little boy when I watched it too, and for me, it was like, oh my god, that girl's naked. I get to see a naked girl, and then she turns into what she turns into, and it's like, is that what happens to girls when they're naked? I'm a little boy too, so kind of showing my age as well. You were talking about showing our age. My family owned a video store growing up in Adrian, Michigan, so I
that's
used to bring cassette
awesome.
tapes.
Are you kidding?
Yeah, downtown video, man. That was our store. So that's how I got so into horror movies, and it all started with House. Actually, my grandma wanted to break me of watching Ghostbusters all the time,
Yeah.
and she brought home the movie House, and that's how all this started. So, now I want to ask you. We talked
Sad
about
that
The
your
Shining.
family had that. Oh my gosh.
Oh, we sold it when I was about 6. So I didn't get to spend too much time of, pure memory with it, but I'm with you. I wish I could have spent more with all those old VHS. I got a bunch of them still. It's so cool seeing the downtown video sticker on the side,
Yeah.
but so I want to ask you this. We talked about The Shining and how obviously great that movie is and what that means to you. Dr. Sleep. What are your opinions on Dr. Sleep? Have you seen that yet?
I actually haven't seen it, but I love Mike Flanagan, and actually his film that he did previous to that, Hush, one of his early films with Kate Siegel, is one of my favorite recent. I think about that movie all the time and how smart they were and how they shot it. And I know also Jocelyn Donahue has a role in Doctor Sleep, and she was in Insidious too with me, and she's amazing. And I think House of the Devil that she did with Ty West is also one of the best recent horror movies. So I feel terrible that I haven't seen it. I'm such a faker, but it's definitely at the top of my list. And I meant to see it, and everything was going on, I didn't see it.
Sure. See, I'm a huge, huge Doctor Sleep fan. I absolutely adore this movie and all the callbacks that they have to The Shining. It's so great. Seeing Danny as an adult and going back. And there's one scene, and I was going to talk to you about Doctor Sleep,
So
where
sorry.
no, you're fine.
Tired.
He goes back to the Overlook. I'm not going to tell you why. I don't want to spoil anything.
Okay.
But he's sitting at the bar and he's sober now, just like Jack was. And Lloyd, the bartender, is Jack. He's sitting there and he's talking to him. He's like, Dad, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm Lloyd, the bartender. And it's such a powerful scene. So please, when you watch that, please let me know what you think of it, because as a fan of The Shining, I think that you will absolutely adore it. They did it so well. It's such a well done movie.
I have no doubt, and I'm mortified that I haven't seen it. I should have really seen that before we talked.
No, that's fine. Like I said, I'm just appreciative that I get to talk to you about The Shining. That's cool. So I asked you about The Shining. I'm going to go scream on you here. What's your favorite scary movie? We talked about your first. What's your favorite horror movie?
So I'll be like that guy, and I'll split it up between, I think, like some of the classic ones and then maybe some of the newer school ones. I mean, so there's like Jaws and Alien, which I think obviously they're sort of similar, and they're just I've seen both of those fairly recently, and they're such good films, and they are so well done, obviously, with amazing iconic directors at the helm.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I still think there's something about those in the way that they're scary that affects us. Like Jaws,
Yeah.
like, it really, like I won't swim in the ocean. I won't. To this day, I won't do it.
And that's how
I
you know
feel
a
so
movie's iconic, because how many other people out there are just like you? You know, there's so many people that will not, you know, Jaws affected so many people because it's something real. It's something we can all be scared of.
and even as much has been spoken about, you know, the shark didn't work, and the way they had to be smart about, you know, making it feel unsettling and feel scary. It's the scene in the boat where the three of them are talking is the thing that scares. It's that is the
Yeah.
best. Oh, it's so effective. And then I would say the same on the other hand with Alien in the performance and Sigourney Weaver. It's that's just her, you know, that's just all coming from her, and it's just so well done because it feels so real.
Yeah.
Even though it really, you know, it's kind of a bigger concept than Jaws, but it works in the same way.
Hmm. Oh, creature features are awesome, whether it's a shark or alien. You know, like I'm with you. I'm a huge fan of those. And I love the practical effects in those movies. And I love what you touched on something. You don't see Bruce the shark a lot in Jaws. And I think that it worked. It was a happy accident, because I
Yeah.
think when you finally do see the shark, like your anxiety is already fever pitched, and you see him and it's just so terrifying. Like, oh, they're scared of a shark. They're scared of a shark. And you finally really, really see it. You know, you're going to need a bigger boat. You know, like that's so iconic and it's masterpiece. Masterpiece.
Definitely.
So
And
let's
then
go with yeah.
newer entries, of course, you know, the Jordan Peele's stuff of, you know, us is still, I'm still unpacking that film. There was so much to it. Parasite in that way. But I also really loved Invisible Man, that Lee
Okay.
Whannell wrote and directed. Elizabeth Moss is incredible in that movie, and I think, not that I mean, look, the world is sort of a horror movie, right? So it's,
Especially right now, sure.
yeah, it's interesting to me, and I've certainly admittedly come a long way with, you know, I wouldn't consider myself, especially growing up, I didn't really like scary movies. I was, you know, I was afraid of them.
Sure.
Probably my introduction wasn't the best, but I feel like having been in some, and being able to look at things from an actor's perspective or a story perspective or production wise, but also just think, and this is maybe just a cinema thing, but like the way that horror movies can really hone in, and the genre is very vast of like what is
Yeah.
scary. The way we can sort of hone in on like a microscope on like one aspect of something that is terrifying, and it is universal, and then you can flip that around and make it like a telescope and be like, we have no like the what we understand about humanity or about the realm that we live in, or what exists beyond ourselves and what we know and what we can see, makes you feel so tiny. Like I have such an appreciation and respect for the genre, just sort of maybe growing up a little bit and now sort of having a different worldview, but there's so much to it. And it's all universal because, you know, we're touching on things that we don't, you know, maybe want to talk about, but then when they're
Right.
there, everybody's like, everybody relates to it.
Hmm. Well, and something I've talked about on the channel before, and people might be sick of hearing me say it, but horror is so amazing as a genre. The people that are a part of it are all so
Oh
kind
yeah.
and so gentle. We have cons based on horror movies. I mean, you don't have rom-com con. You know, like they don't do that. Like that's how amazing horror movies are. And you go and you watch these people that spend sometimes days picking out the cosplay that they're going to do to go to this con, and you have
Cosplay.
amazing, yeah, and you have amazing actors, actresses, producers, photographers, directors that will travel around the world just to sit and talk to fans about how much their movies mean to them. And it's not like an ego boost for you guys, but you know, I can't say anything because I've never been in film. But I can say that you know you guys are touching people, and you guys know that the influence you have on us, especially right now, people that are always telling people in Hollywood, keep your opinions to yourself and blah, 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 blah. You guys are people too. whether you're on a screen, you're off a screen, you're behind a camera, you're in front of a camera, you're still human beings and you're out there entertaining us. And during this COVID, we should have learned to appreciate the hard work you guys do a lot more, because now we're missing out on that entertainment. There's only so much Netflix, Hulu, Shudder, Amazon Prime that you watch until you start, I miss going to the movies with my wife. I miss going and doing these things. And you guys, I miss it. You guys that's your livelihood. So, the horror genre, I am so appreciative of everything you guys do. Like I said, traveling around the world, going to cons and everything, it's so amazing. And I hope you guys can get back to work soon too, because not just for your livelihood, but it'd be nice to see you guys working again.
I agree. I hope so too. Well, and it's a communal experience a lot of times, like going on a roller coaster with a theater full of people, when it's a good film and everybody gets into it. I think that it's also maybe some of the superhero movies, but I think horror is really the only genre left where there's a lot of active audience participation in a big packed theater most of the time. It's so fun to see a horror movie in that setting.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. And when we were talking about cons, that's another thing. Like, I love the fact that these, you watch a horror movie and you see the most brutal, horrific things. Like, have you seen Terrifier? Art the Clown?
No.
Oh, you got to check that out. I'll send you that link too. But I just interviewed Art the Clown himself. His was episode 49, and the nicest guy I've talked to, and you're in Insidious Chapter 2, Alicia. I talk to you guys and you see these horrific movies, but then you guys are the sweetest, kindest people in the whole world. And it's so amazing. You go to these cons and you meet people that you see, Robert Englund, super kind, sweet guy, but this is God, so we love you guys so much. And the fact that you come out here and you take time out of your day to talk to me about horror movies is super, super awesome to me. So please continue to do all the good work you do. Send me anything you can, anytime you have any updates. I'd be happy to share everything I can.
Thank you so much. It's truly a pleasure and an honor to be your 50th guest. Thank you.
Yes, no, it's so amazing. It's so cool. So I always end these with the same thing. We always end with a skull count. We're going back to The Shining. I'm pretty sure I know what we're 0 being the worst, 5 being the best. What do you give The Shining?
I'm gonna give it 5.
Yep.
5 skulls.
You got the stamp. 5 skulls on The Shining. So
I would give it 10.
Again.
That was 11.
Yeah. It's one of those movies that I always go back to. I have right now we have a big projector set up in our living room because we can't go to the theater. We can't go to the cinema. So we still have Friday night movie nights. Like last night we got to watch we watched Mulan with our kids last night, which, I'm still a sucker for Disney. I grew up with it, love horror movies, but I love me some Disney too. So don't go anywhere. I got a couple other questions for you. Everybody else, thank you for tuning in for 50 episodes. This is such an honor to me to be doing this. Just small town Michigan guy, and I get to hang out with these cool people all the time and have cool people watching and commenting and telling me what it means to them. So everybody, thank you so much. This means the world to me, your continued support. Keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.